Shalom, when I start off, source by giving all praise to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahshua, Bashem, Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles of great Millstone, and honors you brothers doing the work, the most sound truth, and in sincerity. Yahweh is the real name of whom the world ignorantly calls God, Jehovah. Yahweh, his real name is Yahweh. Son's true name is Yahweh Shai, and when we pray Yahweh, Ba Hashem, Yahweh Shai, B'min in, Hamling Da, and Sham, meaning names Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai. Real quick, yeah, man. I was just thinking about the little personal event that happened yesterday. I went to go see my nan, and it was one of the time that I went. Normally if I'm not already in motion by a certain time, I'm just not gonna go because she lives quite far. But in the spirit, I was like, you know what, let me go and just finish this project that she needed. She needed something fixed. So I was like, you know what, charge it. Let me just go at that particular time. I get there now. She had a bloody metal pot in the microwave. Right now, the spirit of the Lord had it whereby there was a lot of water in there. Um, you know, so nothing happened. But it was one of those ones where she genuinely didn't know that you couldn't put a metal pot in the microwave. Right, which was a bit mad, but I told her, yo, she told me that something was broken, so I called, bought something for the a little hot plate thing to cook on, so her cooker's broke or whatever, right? But it was just like when you run through you run through like a story, something that's just happened, you're like, yo, that was the Lord, Because had it been maybe the next day and there was less water and then whatever, it could have got dark, right? It could have got dark. Some kind of explosion, some kind of injury, or whatever, right? But yeah, for me, it was just the fact that it was a time that I wouldn't normally go, and in other instances I wouldn't have gone. In rather most instances I wouldn't have gone at that time, to even just see, even the time I arrived, to see that that's how the pot had been warmed up, right? So everything was there for me to see, and the law basically patterned it as such, right? Which just gives us, gave me a reminder that as an individual, we're automatons, if you will, right? We may think that we're individuals and we're doing things of our own accord, but so now the Most High is in control, right? And that was just a nice little reminder of that, right? So Proverbs 20 and 24 says, man's goings are of Yahweh. How can a man then understand his own way, right? And even when you look at that on a bigger picture, right? Rather, the first point is this idea of free will, right? Which is pushed in the world, right? But there is no such thing. The Most High is in control over every little thing. All right, let's grab this in Sirach. Right, this is Sirach 18 and 3. It says, who governeth the world with the palm of his hand, and all things obey his will. For he is the king of all, and by his power dividing holy things among them from profane. So any and everything, principality, individual, whatever it is, right, is in subjection to Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, right? So there is literally nothing that can just do whatever it wants, and that includes Satan, right? But the point, the greater issue as well, the greater point is this idea, that these elites have, which is to basically go on and rule the world, and it's just like, nah, bro. You think you're gonna exercise this plan, right? But the Most High's got you in a trick bag, right? Everything that you're doing is to your downfall, right? You have to do these things, right? But one of the things I always kind of think about is, the Lord is bound by his word, right? And we understand that Esau wants to basically continue his house forever, right? He wants to, I completely butchered that. Let me read it. I completely butchered that precept. It says Psalms 49:11. Their inward thought. Yeah, I didn't butcher that. Okay, so lucky. So their inward thought is, right, that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names, right? So understand that this is the spirit and the mentality that these Edomites have, right? They want their houses to continue forever. They believe that their houses will continue forever, right? But the Most High is bound to his laws. So if they did really want to rule forever, they would just have to not push out the MOTB, right? There are certain prophecies that they could just be like, well, we are actually going to destroy all of our nukes because the prophecy says America is going to be destroyed by thermonuclear fire. So we're going to destroy all the nukes so that this can never happen. But they can't. They could be like, look, man, we're not going to push out the MOTB, but they can't not do that. They have to do that. And it just shows you that they ain't in control. The Most High is the one that is in control. Right? So Job 5:12 says he disappointed the devices of the crafty so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. Okay? They think that they're in control. They think that they can, achieve X, Y, and Z. But ultimately, right, they are just as, they're under subjection as are the rest of us, right? So much so that, we can read this in the book of Ezekiel, right? It's Ezekiel 38, right, and 10, right? I'll start from 8 and read into it, right? I'll read it. I'll read from the top. Right, it says Ezekiel 38 from 2 says, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog. Right, it's referring to these Russians, right, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, right, because they're still Edomites, right? We're like, ooh, whatever, right, but they're still Edomites. They're just one of the whooping sticks of the Lord that the Lord is going to use in these last days to bring about confusion and calamity. Okay, it says, and say, thus saith the Lord, behold, I'm against thee. Right, we just covered that. They're still Edomites. It says, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Right, when you're looking at these historical places and you superimpose that to a world map, right, today, right, you basically, you get to around about the times of, rather locations of Russia, okay, when you're talking about Gog, right, and Magog means land of Gog, right? It says, I'll turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, right, because, the Lord is turning them back into this Soviet-style superpower once again, okay? It says, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army and horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. So the Lord is the one that's put the spirit in them to do this, okay? Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. So Persia, that's Iran right now. That's the main thing in what's the word I'm looking for? That's the main topic of conversation at the moment, right? So it says, Gomer, representing Turkey, says, and all his band, the house of Togarmah and the north and of the north quarters, and all his bands and many people with thee. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Right, once again, the Most High has made it such that Russia is a superpower that has got a lot of defensive weaponry that they've been given to all of these smaller nations. Okay, it says, thou shalt ascend and come like a storm, thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands and many people with thee. Thus saith the Lord power, it shall also come to pass that at the same time things shall come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought, right? And that's it. They think that they're going to be able to control this war that is to come or whatever, what have you, right? But the Lord is just going to put that mind into someone, okay? And same thing here, in evil thought, like, because you be hearing people in the world be like, yeah, they got nukes, but they'll never actually fire them, right? But we're here to tell you, no, they're gonna fire them. They're definitely gonna fire them, right? So it says, and thou shalt say, I'll go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates, right? Land of unwalled villages being America. right? It says them that arrest America and the state of Israel. Okay, so even on that front, right, these individuals, right, they are just puppets, right, of the Lord, right? It says Proverbs 21, right, from the top, says the king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh, as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. Okay, so that's it, right? The no one has freedom, if you will, right? Now I know I got a bunch of precepts on free will, so let's grab into some of them. Right, so Job 33:15 to 17 says, in a dream and a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men and slumberings upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men and seeth their instruction. Right now, someone may be like, well, then I'm not going to sleep then. I was like, all right, cool, but the Lord is the one that put that idea into you. If you didn't sleep today, well, he put it into you the day before. Okay, right? Because man is vain, right? They think that we was what I'm looking for. They think that they have some kind of control. Right, man thinks that they have some kind of control, right? The pride of man, right? Says that he may withdraw man from his purpose, right? In fact, let's look up this word purpose here. Yeah, it just looks like work, right? H4639, Ma'aisha, right? It says an action, good or bad, generally a transaction, abstractly activity, etc. Deed, work. So just man from his task, basically. This is Proverbs 16:1 and 9, and Proverbs 16 verses 1 and verse 9. This is verse 1 says the preparations of the heart in man, and the arts of the tongue is from Yahweh. Verse 9 says a man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord Yahweh directeth his steps. I read those two. Right, Jeremiah 10:23 says, O Yahweh, know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walketh to direct his steps. Right, Jeremiah 17:10. I, Yahweh, search the heart. I try the reins, right, even to give every man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doings, right? Which that's the thing, because the Most High can make an individual, a demon, right, and then punish him for it. Right, and that's why we must always fear the Lord. Right, it says Sirach 39:18. It says at his commandment is done whatsoever pleaseth him, and none can hinder. Right, when he will save. It's like, right. So basically, the Most High says something's going to happen. It's going to happen. The Most High says he's going to use an individual, right, to do something or other. Then guess what? That individual's going to do that task. Right, and I'll finish on Romans 9 and read into it a little bit. Romans 9:15, right? So for he saith to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and have compassion on whom I'll have compassion. Right? Quoting Exodus 33:19, verse 16 says, so then it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of the Most High that showeth mercy. For the scripture saith unto Pharaoh, even for this same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. Right? And you can apply that to E, right? Because the Most High has risen up E, and he's going to show his power in how he destroys E. Right? It says Jeremiah 16:14. It says, therefore, behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that it shall no more be said, Yahweh liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. All right, because it was a great deliverance. Where you read, was it Judges, right, or Joshua, I forget, but start in verse 1 or 2, it go with Rahab the harlot, it goes into, think Joshua, but yeah, it goes into how Rahab's like, look man, hey, we heard what the Lord did, right? She was scared, right? She was like, we heard what the Lord did for y'all, right? But what's different about this time, pursuant to Revelation 1 and 7, right, is every eye is going to see. Every eye is going to see what the Lord is about to do, right? When the Lord comes to visit the world which he made. So it's gonna be a great salvation, greater than the salvation out of Egypt, right? As we're about to read. Right, verse 15 says, But Yahweh liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and from all the lands whither he had driven them, and I'll bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers. All right. So then, just finishing off Romans 9 for I'll read 17 again. It says, For the scripture saith unto Pharaoh, even for this same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee. Right. So even the fact that he has been raised up to the position that he is in, because once again that wasn't of his own power, right? That was the Most High that has set him in the position that he is in today, right? The Most High did that, right? The fact that he's taken the basest of men and risen them up, right? That was all the power, right, and will of the Lord, right? It's like it says verse 18, so it's in power in thee, right? And that my might be declared throughout all the earth. Yeah, because people look at E and all of the weaponry that he and his allies have gathered, right? And they still look at him as someone of power. Okay, the fact of the matter is the large majority of the planet Earth still revere this devil. Okay. It's verse 18, therefore he hath he mercy on whom he have mercy, right? And whom he will he hardeneth, right? Because he hardened Pharaoh's heart, right? And in fact, that was prophesied to Moses, right? The Lord was like, yeah, man, yeah, go to Pharaoh. Don't worry though, like I'm gonna harden his heart. Right? And you saw it, Pharaoh wanted to, but then the Lord was still hardening his heart. Because at the end of the day, it ain't of man, right? It's of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. So as always, Lord's word, I was edifying, and yeah, to the next one, say Shalom.